So these days, informal generally describes settings where learning takes place. And we can learn in a variety of environments, as I'm sure you're well aware. So we describe now informal science education institutions or settings versus formal settings, namely classrooms. Instead of informal education and formal education, it's formal and informal settings. So what are some of those settings? Aquariums, museums, botanic gardens. Smartphones, that's informal setting, right? This person is obviously, it looks like it's laying down on the bed or the floor. That's about as informal as you can get. Hobbies or sports, maybe you're out on a rowing team like I am and you're learning about physics either consciously or unconsciously by participating in that sport. Travel, anytime you might even look at a historic marker or visit a new place and get a new understanding and appreciation for culture or area. And then on the job, certainly as students and faculty and hopefully participating community members, every day we're developing and changing and learning through the course of our careers. So all of these other places that we think of, when we said, oh, informal education is other, this is actually where we conduct our lives and learning 95% of the time. So probably a little more structured there than if we just call it informal education. So public engagement with science. My work really focuses on improving and innovating methods and models of public engagement with science. So now all of this has led up to me telling you where this sits. This idea that I just brought to you, informal science education settings, brought together with the science community and public policy. That center point where all three of these circles overlap is really what we're talking about with public engagement with science. So we're trying to engage people in all of these various settings with people in the science community and often talking about things that are relating to public policy or certainly community lives. So now I want to talk to you about one different model that exemplifies really what I'm talking about. This is a program called Talk Science with Me, which I run here in Alachua County and am expanding to places around the state of Florida. It's built on a model from the Reuben Fleet Center in San Diego called Two Scientists Walk into a Bar. The basic idea is that you've got, instead of a public lecture, which you might have heard of as a science cafe or part of Café Scientifique, you might have also heard of Nerd Night, things like that, where someone gets up at the front of the room. Remember this idea of the expert, and they give a presentation to an audience of presumably non-experts in that area with the intention of sharing that knowledge. So you can see you've kind of got that model of the one expert moving the knowledge to these individuals. And they might have beer. A different model is this, what's called public engagement, right? So here, your participants are sitting casually, and I'll tell you there are two scientists and two public audience members. I invite you to guess which ones are which. It's a little bit of a trick question. The two ladies in the blue and the red are actually the scientists who signed up to participate in the event. However, this woman in the light yellow is also a scientist. So again, if these two were standing at the front of the room and just giving a talk, they wouldn't get a chance to find out what expertise she might have, either in a related discipline or just in her community, to give them feedback about what their work could do for her. And in this case, you can see people are engaged, they're facing each other, they're talking together. So here we've got, again, the green, yellow, and orange, the multi-way communication, multiple exchange of information, and mutual learning. And there's also beer. So this idea is to use everyday settings to remove more barriers to participation for both the public and the scientists. So this person on the stage over here may actually be really intimidated by trying to give a talk to people that they don't know anything about. Here, the scientists didn't really have to prepare anything. They brought their laptop to give a little bit of context if they had some things to show, but they just show up and start talking to people and really have a conversation. So especially for people starting out, this idea of public engagement could be much less formal and much easier to get involved with, as well as providing better learning and engagement for everybody. So how does this work? There are 10 venues at a time, 5 urban and 5 rural, and that means there's 10 pairs of scientists. So here in the center is, in yellow, our center of our county, the urban center, and then the 5 sites around on various county roads, about 20 minutes away in any direction. The programs are on weekday evenings and weekend afternoons, again, to try and reach more people, and they last about 2 hours. They recruit scientists from university email lists. People could be faculty, postdoc, grad students. I've even had undergrad researchers participate. Eventually, industry people could be participating, but it's open to anybody of any discipline. And then the public participants are generally just people who are hanging out in these spaces. They're designed to be in spaces where people are already lingering and might be interested in talking with their fellow community members. Now we just do it about science. And then the topics are chosen by the scientists based on, whatever they might have in their expertise, but in collaboration with the public participants. If the participant comes up and wants to talk about Gator football, for example, they might discover that, hey, scientists are real people. They've got real interests outside of their academic lab and their academic life. What? I know what a scientist is now. So why do we need this engagement beyond this traditional idea of education and communication? So even these casual conversations, as easy as they might seem to start, they can take actually some practice to invite the public participants in. Again, partly because we've set up these models of, here's the expert giving you the information. So it's not necessarily expected by these public participants that people will be willing to just engage in casual, unstructured conversation. And the scientists, frankly, might also be used to giving a talk and then doing a strict question and answer. So they may be waiting for the participants simply to ask them questions and then to answer them, versus maybe flipping the script and saying, hey, what do you know about my topic about marine bioluminescence? Again, people also don't always expect scientists to show up in these public spaces, or especially for scientists to value their expertise in the conversation. And then we've got some interactions that actually indicate there's deep levels of engagement. So all of these are proving that there are reasons that this can be a really successful model and things that we should explore to reach a wider variety of people and engage them with science. So what do we know about what this means for research? This means that we're finding out that we could find some audience expertise that could be shared with researchers throughout the community. Also, we're finding out about how people, again, value science, expect to interact with science, and want to learn about science in their everyday lives. So that's back to the research that I do and contribute to. What do we mean is good, as good and effective public engagement with science? So thank you so much. I have a few resources here. I'm happy to discuss any of this with you by email or phone, so please feel free to get in touch.